So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Mei Terumi, so let's start the series. The air in the newly built Hall of Concord, nestled in the neutral land of iron, was chilled by more than just mountain altitude. It was the coldness of careful calculation, of smiles that didn't reach eyes, of hands that rested a hair's breadth from weapon pouches. The first full Kage summit since the end of the Fourth Great Shinobi War was less a celebration of peace and more a delicate, high-stakes game of go played with living pieces. Naruto Uzumaki, standing as an official advisor to the Hokage, a title that still felt too large for his shoulders, felt the weight of every gaze. He was no longer just the hero of the war, the savior. He was a symbol, a political entity, and the air in the room was thick with the unspoken adjustments to that new reality. His eyes, however, kept drifting to the figure at the table representing the land of water. Mei Terumi, the fifth Mizukage, was the picture of composed elegance. Her laughter, rich and warm, floated across the chamber as she disarmed a tense moment between the Tsuchikage and Reikage with a perfectly timed, slightly risque joke. Her green eyes crinkled at the corners, her posture relaxed against the high back of her chair. She was a master performer, and this summit was her stage. Naruto watched, and he saw. He saw the slight tightening of her knuckles as she lifted her teacup. He saw the fleeting shadow that passed behind her eyes when the discussion turned to Kirigakure's bloody mist era, a past she had personally gutted and remade. He saw the way her gaze, in rare unguarded moments, would drift to the window, to the distant, unseen sea. It was during a recess, as delegates mingled in the antechamber, that their worlds first truly collided. Naruto, escaping a suffocating conversation about border tariffs, found himself on a secluded balcony overlooking the jagged peaks. The cold air was a relief. He leaned on the railing, letting out a long, visible breath. "A bit overwhelming, isn't it?" a melodic voice said from behind him. "All these old men arguing over lines on a map they nearly died to erase." He turned. Mei stood there, her cloak draped over one arm, a gentle, knowing smile on her lips. Up close, the carefully applied makeup couldn't fully mask the faint traces of exhaustion under her eyes. "Mizukage-sama," Naruto said, straightening slightly. "It's frustrating. They talk about peace like it's a contract to be signed, not a feeling to be built." Mei's smile became more genuine, less performative. She joined him at the railing, not looking at him, but at the horizon. "You see the heart of it, Uzumaki-san. That's why you're here, and not just because of your title. They're afraid of your kind of peace. It's messy. It requires trust, not just treaties." "You don't seem afraid," Naruto observed. She laughed, a softer, more private sound than her summit laugh. "Oh, I'm terrified. But different things terrify me. The collapse of this fragile alliance terrifies me. The thought of my village sliding back into the shadows terrifies me." She finally looked at him, and her green eyes held a depth of loneliness that struck him speechless. "Being alone in a room full of people who only see the title, not the woman, that terrifies me most of all." The confession, so stark and sudden, hung between them. It was a crack in her flawless armor, offered to him, of all people. Naruto didn't offer empty platitudes. He met her gaze, his own blue eyes serious, earnest. "I know what that's like," he said quietly. "To be seen only as a container. Or a hero. Not as, just you." A silent understanding passed between them, two people who had carried the weight of their respective villages on their backs, who knew the peculiar isolation of being adored by millions yet intimately known by none. Their moment was shattered by the approach of Chojuro, Mei's ever-loyal swordsman and bodyguard. "Mizukage-sama, the session is resuming. The topic is joint security for the upcoming trade convoys through the whirlpool routes." Mei's public mask slid back into place with practiced ease, but not before she gave Naruto a last, lingering look that was more than polite farewell. "Duty calls, Uzumaki-san. Don't let them suffocate your fire. We need it." As she swept away, cloak billowing, Naruto felt a strange pull in his chest. It wasn't just attraction, though her beauty was undeniable. It was recognition. It was the sense that he had just met someone who spoke a language of the soul he thought only he and a few close friends understood. Back in the summit chamber, the discussion turned to the security of the sea lanes near the land of water. Reports hinted at organized, well-armed pirates disrupting reconstruction supply ships, pirates using advanced ninjutsu and showing disturbing knowledge of Kiri patrol schedules. "It's not mere banditry," Mei stated, her voice losing its earlier lightness, turning to cold steel. "It's an insurgency. Remnants of the old regime, war profiteers, and missing Nin who benefited from the mist's isolation. They seek to undermine the new peace by strangling our economy." The Reikage grunted. "Then handle your internal affairs, Mizukage." "They are not just our affair," Kakashi Hatake, the sixth Hokage, interjected smoothly, his single visible eye glancing at Naruto. "If these factions can cripple Kiri's recovery, it destabilizes the entire maritime alliance. The chaos will spread." An idea, risky and bold, formed in Naruto's mind. He stood up, drawing every eye in the room. "Then we shouldn't let it be just Kiri's affair. We should show a united front." Mei's gaze sharpened on him. What are you proposing, Uzumaki-san? A joint security operation, Naruto said, his voice gaining confidence. A public demonstration of the new alliances. Send a Konoha shinobi to assist Kiri's forces in rooting out this pirate base. Not an army. A symbol. The Tsuchikage scoffed. A symbol? Symbols are fragile. They're also what we fought a war for, Naruto fired back, his passion cutting through the political fog. Who better to go than someone who understands symbols? A heavy silence fell. All eyes moved from Naruto to Kakashi, then to Mei. The political implications were vast. It was a test of trust. Sending Konoha's greatest weapon into the heart of Kiri's most sensitive problem. Mei studied Naruto for a long moment. The young man before her was no longer the brash boy she'd heard tales of. This was a man who had faced down gods and madness, whose eyes held both unwavering light and the shadows of profound loss. He offered not just his power, but himself as a bridge. A slow, real smile touched her lips, one that reached her eyes, warming them like sunlight through deep water. I accept the proposal, she declared, her voice ringing clear in the chamber. Let the world see that the bond between the leaf and the mist is not parchment deep. Let them see it defended by our strongest. She looked directly at Naruto, a challenge and an invitation in her gaze. Welcome to Kirigakure, Uzumaki Naruto. Prepare for mist that burns and seas that boil. As the summit moved on to other topics, Naruto felt a thrilling, dangerous current stir in the air. He was no longer just navigating politics. He was sailing into the heart of a storm, guided by a Kage whose smile was as dangerous and alluring as her hidden jutsu. The mission was set. The stage had shifted from the gilded cage of the summit to the mist-shrouded islands of water. And the slow, perilous, beautiful dance between the hero of fire and the mistress of the mist had just begun. Chapter 2, Arrival in the City of Shadows and Light. The journey to Kirigakure was a descent into another world. The air grew thick with salt and moisture, the sunlight diffusing into a perpetual, pearlescent haze. Naruto stood at the bow of the sleek Kiri warship, watching as jagged, moss-covered rock formations rose from the sea like the bones of ancient leviathans. Then, through the parting mists, it appeared. Kirigakure was not like Konoha. There was no sprawling canopy of green, no warm, dappled sunlight. It was a city of stark, breathtaking beauty, built into the face of immense, water-sculpted cliffs and across a network of islands connected by slender, arched bridges. Waterfalls cascaded from dizzying heights into the bay below, their roar a constant, low thunder. Buildings were made of dark stone and weathered wood, their edges softened by hanging moss and ferns. It was a place of powerful contrasts, brutalist strength and delicate, waterborne life. It felt ancient, melancholic, and resilient. Just like its leader. Mei was waiting for him at the main dock, a calculated statement in itself. She was not in the distant, secure Kage Tower, she was at the gate. Flanked by Chojuro and a contingent of silent, sharp-eyed Umbu with mist-themed masks, she was a vision of authority. She wore her full Kage regalia today, the hat and robes imposing, her posture effortlessly commanding the space. The citizens who gathered at a respectful distance watched with a mixture of awe, curiosity, and a faint, lingering wariness. As Naruto disembarked, the weight of history pressed down. He felt the stares, heard the hushed whispers. Konoha's Jinchuriki. The QB boy. The war hero. He was a walking symbol, and in the mist, symbols were complicated things. Uzumaki Naruto, Mei's voice carried over the dock, warm yet formal. On behalf of Kirigakure, I welcome you. May your presence here strengthen the bonds between our villages. The official words were perfect. But as Naruto bowed and approached, he saw the subtle glint in her green eyes, a private acknowledgement of their balcony conversation. The honor is mine, Mizukage-sama, Naruto replied, his voice earnest. Konoha stands with Kiri. The public ceremony was brief. As they began the walk through the winding, mist-dampened streets towards the administrative complex, Naruto felt the city's pulse. It was quieter than Konoha, the sounds muted by the ever-present mist. Children peeked from behind adults, their eyes wide. He saw rebuilt sections standing shoulder to shoulder with older, scarred buildings. He saw memorial stones gleaming with recent offerings. This was a village healing, but its wounds were still fresh, its psyche still tender. Their private meeting in Mei's office was a different atmosphere. The room was spacious, with a wall that was essentially a giant window overlooking the turbulent bay. Scrolls and maps were neatly arranged, but a single, elegant orchid on her desk added a touch of softness. Mei shed her Kage hat, running a hand through her auburn hair with a sigh that seemed to release the day's formal tension. Forgive the pageantry, Naruto. In the mist, optics are survival. No forgiveness needed, he said, taking a seat opposite her. I get it. More than I used to. She studied him, her playful public mask gone, replaced by a keen, assessing intelligence. Do you? You come from a village built on a founding ideal of love and friendship, however messy its reality. The mist was founded on a principle of ruthless strength, of killing your closest to graduate. The shadows here are long and deep. The pirates we face are not just criminals. they are ghosts of that philosophy. They believe the peace I've built has made us soft, vulnerable. They see my alliance with the other villages, and with you specifically, as the ultimate betrayal of the old ways. Naruto listened, not just to her words, but to the weight behind them. The loneliness of her position was a tangible thing in the room. So this mission isn't just about stopping pirates. It's about proving your new way is stronger. Precisely. A fierce pride flashed in her eyes. And having you here is a double-edged sword. Your power is undeniable. But your presence also inflames the traditionalists. You are a living symbol of the new world order they despise. Then let's use that, Naruto said, leaning forward, his eyes blazing with that characteristic, infectious determination. Let them come at me. Let's draw them out. I didn't come here to hide, Mae-sama. The informal address slipped out, a bridge back to their moment of understanding. May didn't correct him. A slow, dangerous smile touched her lips. It was the smile of a strategist seeing a bold move she approved of. I had a feeling you'd say that. Very well. We will be a visible presence. Patrols together. Public appearances. We will be the target, and we will be the anvil that shatters them. For the next hour, they pored over intelligence reports with Chojuro. The pirate base was suspected to be in the shifting, labyrinthine maze of sea caves and fog-shrouded islets known as the Graveyard of Ships. The leader was a figure known only as Hagain, a former Kiri hunter rumored to wield a corrupted version of water release that turned the very sea against his foes. As the meeting concluded, a young aide brought in tea. May dismissed Chojuro and the others, leaving them alone as dusk painted the mist outside in shades of violet and gold. You should rest, May said, sipping her tea. Your quarters are in the diplomatic wing. Secure, but with a view. I thought you might dislike feeling contained. The thoughtfulness of the gesture struck him. Thank you. A comfortable silence fell, broken only by the distant cry of seabirds. Naruto watched her as she gazed out at her village, the fading light etching the lines of care on her face. The confident Mizukage was gone again, replaced by the weary, thoughtful woman from the balcony. Do they ever see you? Naruto asked softly, echoing her earlier confession. The people you're protecting? May didn't look away from the window. Chojuro does. A few others. But it is a lonely summit. Suitors appear, of course. Lords, merchants, powerful shinobi. They see the title, the power, the aesthetics. She said the last word with a hint of old bitterness. They see a prize to be won, or a strategic advantage to be secured. Not a woman who spends her nights worrying about grain shipments and the lingering hate in old men's eyes. Her vulnerability, offered so freely a second time, was a gift of immense trust. Naruto felt a surge of protectiveness, not for the Kage, but for the person. I see you, he said, the words simple and devastatingly sincere. Her eyes snapped to his, wide and unguarded. The air in the room grew charged, thick with something unnameable. The age difference, the titles, the political stakes, they all hung in the space between them, a chasm and a bridge. Before either could speak further, a sharp knock came at the door. An Anbu entered, kneeling. Mizukage-sama. A patrol boat has been found adrift near the graveyard's edge. No survivors. There is a message carved into the hull. May's vulnerability vanished, sealed away behind a wall of icy resolve. What does it say? The Anbu's voice was flat. It says, send the fox home, or we will send him back in pieces. The threat was direct, a gauntlet thrown. The quiet intimacy shattered, replaced by the cold reality of the conflict. May's expression hardened into something magnificent and terrifying. She stood, her presence filling the room. It seems our guests are impatient. She looked at Naruto, and the fire in her gaze now was a shared one. Tomorrow, we begin. Let's show these ghosts what happens when mist and fire stand together. Naruto stood, meeting her gaze with equal intensity. The mission was no longer abstract. It was personal. The romance of mist and flame had found its first, violent spark in the darkness. Chapter 3, Symbiosis. The patrol boat cut through the iron-gray waters of the Graveyard of Ships with a low thrum. The mist here was different, thicker, colder, carrying the faint, briny scent of decay and old violence. Naruto stood beside May on the deck, their cloaks damp with the pervasive moisture. Chojuro was at the helm, his gaze constantly scanning the jagged, cave-pocked cliffs that rose from the sea like rotten teeth. The mood was tense, professional. The crew of hand-picked Kiri shinobi moved with silent efficiency, but Naruto felt their sidelong glances. Respect, yes. But also a deep-seated wariness of the foreign power walking their decks. Stay sharp, May said, her voice low, carrying easily over the engine's noise. She wasn't looking at him, but at the mist. This fog is natural, but it can be weaponized in an instant. Their first strike will be for disorientation. Naruto nodded, his senses extending outward. He could feel Kurama's low grumble in the back of his mind, a primal awareness of hostility in the environment. The water here tastes of malice, kid. I feel it, Naruto thought back. They rounded a towering spire of rock. And the ambush began. It was silent and sudden. From the cliff faces, dozens of weighted nets, glinting with chakra disruption seals, shot towards the boat. Simultaneously, the sea around them erupted not with enemy shinobi, but with a churning, aggressive whirlpool, seeking to capsize them. Lava release, melting apparition jutsu. Mei's hands flew through seals with fluid grace. Instead of attacking the nets, she aimed at the sea around the hull. A wave of viscous, superheated molten rock poured from her mouth, hitting the water. A colossal cloud of superheated steam billowed outwards with a deafening hiss, engulfing the incoming nets. The seals fizzled and died in the intense heat, the nets themselves dissolving into ash. The boat rocked violently from the whirlpool. Naruto didn't hesitate. He didn't need seals. Wind release, great breach. A massive, controlled gust of wind erupted from his palm, not aimed at the water, but into it, striking the heart of the whirlpool's rotation. The opposing force disrupted the current's flow, causing it to collapse in on itself with a frustrated gurgle. The synergy was instinctive, unplanned. She had created a defensive screen and negated the projectile threat. He had stabilized their platform. It had taken seconds. From within the dissipating steam, figures emerged, running on the water. They wore mismatched armor, scarves covering the lower halves of their faces, but their headbands slashed through marked them as missing nin. At their lead was a large man with a brutish cleaver. Mei's eyes narrowed. Hagane's thugs. Amateurs. She made a subtle hand signal to her crew, who fanned out defensively. The lead pirate let out a roar and charged directly at Naruto, cleaver raised. Fox demon. Die and give us back our. He never finished. Naruto didn't move an inch. In a blur of blue, a single shadow clone appeared directly in the pirate's path, catching the cleaver's swing with a bare hand. The clone's face was calm. You talk too much, it said, before dispersing in a puff of smoke, the disruptive chakra feedback sending the man staggering back, weaponless and stunned. But this was a distraction. The real attack came from beneath. 3 figures burst from the water directly below Mei, water-formed spears aimed at her heart. It was a classic mist assassination tactic. Mei didn't even turn. Boil release, skilling mist. A dome of hot, acidic mist erupted from her body. The water spears vaporized before they touched her. The assassins screamed as the corrosive vapor met their skin and lungs, scrambling back into the sea, their attack utterly negated. Naruto felt a surge of admiration. Her power wasn't just massive, it was precise, elegant, and ruthless. She defended without wasting emotion. The remaining pirates, seeing their leaders neutralized so effortlessly, faltered. The confidence bled from their postures. Leave, Mei commanded, her voice ringing with absolute authority. Return to Hagane. Tell him the Mizukage does not negotiate with ghosts. Tell him the next time he sends men to die, I will bring the storm to his cave myself. They fled, dissolving back into the mist from whence they came. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the lap of water against the hull and the hiss of the last cooling lava rock. Mei's crew looked at the two of them with a new kind of awe. The wariness was still there, but it was now mixed with a dawning realization. Together, their Kage and this Konoha shinobi were not just strong. They were complementary forces of nature. Mei let out a controlled breath, the fierce light in her eyes dimming to a thoughtful ember. She walked to the railing near Naruto, looking at the scorched, churned water. Efficient, she remarked, a hint of her earlier private smile returning. You too, Naruto said. That mist, it's like your own version of my Kyuubi cloak. A perfect defense. It is a barrier, she agreed softly, still looking at the water. One I've spent a long time perfecting. It keeps threats at a distance. She finally turned to him. Your wind, it didn't just stop the whirlpool. It cleared the air. Made space to breathe. Their metaphors hung between them, charged with meaning that went far beyond battle. Chojuro approached, clearing his throat. Mizukage-sama, the scouts have triangulated the source of the chakra that created the whirlpool. A cave system 2 points east. It's consistent with Hagane's suspected primary base. Mei nodded, her mind already shifting back to strategy. Return to base. We have the data we needed. A full assault now would be reckless, we need to understand the layout. As the boat turned homeward, Naruto remained at the railing. The shared combat had been a revelation. Fighting alongside Kakashi-sensei or Sakura was about trust and practiced teamwork. This was different. It was like 2 separate melodies suddenly finding a powerful, resonant harmony. He understood her rhythm, her tempo, the way she controlled space with heat and acid, creating zones of safety and danger. And she, he sensed, had understood the raw, directional force of his will. That evening, in the secure strategy room, they pored over the new maps. The tension from the morning had transmuted into a focused, collaborative energy. They debated, pointed, proposed. Naruto's instincts, born of 1,000 unpredictable battles, meshed with Mei's deep, institutional knowledge of the terrain and her enemy's psychology. Later, after the others had left to prepare for the next day's reconnaissance, Naruto found himself alone with her again as she studied a detailed rock formation. "You fought not to kill today," he observed. She didn't look up. A message needed to be sent. To them, and to my people. The new mist subdues its enemies. It does not slaughter them indiscriminately. Every life I take is a seed for future hatred. She traced a line on the map. It is a harder path. But it is the only one that leads away from the past. I know that path, Naruto said, thinking of Nagato, of Obito, of Sasuke. It's the only one worth walking. Finally, she looked up, her expression unreadable. You are unexpectedly wise, Naruto Uzumaki. And your power, it is not just the fox's, is it? It's yours. A wind that can clear poison from the air. He shrugged, a little embarrassed by the direct praise. I had a lot of good teachers. And I had to learn, power without compassion is just a bigger weapon. It doesn't build anything. A genuine, weary, beautiful smile broke across her face. It was the first one he'd seen that held no performance, no strategy, just pure, unguarded feeling. Now you sound like a Kage. The moment stretched. The map between them was forgotten. In the quiet of the room, with only the distant sound of the village's evening bells, the connection forged in battle deepened into something quieter, more profound. Tomorrow, Mei said, her voice barely a whisper, we go deeper into the graveyard. Hagane will not be so easily discouraged. He will have prepared something personal. Let him, Naruto said, his voice steady. We'll be ready. As he left the room, the image of her smile stayed with him, a warm, bright point in the mist-shrouded gloom of Kirigakure. The mission was clarifying, the enemy taking shape. But so was the bond at its center, a slow, steady burn, promising both terrible danger and incredible warmth. Chapter 4, The Corrupted Spring. The intelligence was solid. Hagane's main base was a cavern system behind a thundering waterfall known as the Weeping Sentinel. The constant roar and spray provided perfect sonic and sensory cover. This was not a pirate den of drunken revelry, it was a military redoubt, carved with the chilling efficiency of a hunter Nin's mind. Naruto and Mei led a small, elite team, Jojuro and 2 sensor-type Umbu, through the veil of water and into the gloom. The caverns were a cathedral of dripping stone, lit by the eerie blue-green glow of luminescent fungi. The air was cold and heavy with the smell of damp rock and something else, a metallic, coppery tang that made the back of Naruto's throat itch. Blood, one of the Umbu whispered, confirming it. Old, and a lot of it. They moved in silence, following the faint, corrupted chakra signature that pulsed like a sickly heart deeper within the maze. The evidence of Hagane's ideology was etched into the walls, not with graffiti, but with brutality. They passed cells carved into rock, empty but stained. Training areas littered with human-shaped wooden posts, hacked to pieces. This was a shrine to the old mist's cruelty. Then they found the spring. It was a vast, underground chamber where a natural hot spring should have bubbled. But this water was wrong. It was thick, viscous, and jet black, shimmering with an oily, rainbow sheen. It churned slowly, as if breathing. Standing at its center, on a small island of rock, was a man who could only be Hagane. He was gaunt, with skin like bleached leather stretched over sharp bones. His eyes were the same dead black as the water. He wore tattered remnants of a Kiri hunter Nin uniform. Mei Terumi, his voice echoed, a dry rustle of leaves. You brought a pet. The Leaf's monster. How fitting. 2 aberrations seeking to cleanse the past. Mei stepped forward, her posture regal and unyielding. Hagane. You were once a guardian of this village. Look at what you guard now. A pool of poison. A memory of pain. Pain is purity, he hissed, and the black water surged. You diluted our strength with your treaties, your feelings. You let outsiders walk our sacred mist. This, he gestured to the seething spring. This is the true heart of the mist. Hatred, concentrated. The spilled blood of generations, refined into power. He slammed his hands together. Water release, blood spring possession jutsu. The black water exploded. It didn't form traditional dragons or spears. It coalesced into shifting, screaming humanoid shapes, ghostly echoes of the spring's victims. They flowed across the chamber with terrifying speed, their touch sizzling the very air with corrosive malice. Mei reacted instantly. Lava release, Molestone Wall. A barrier of rapidly cooling magma erupted from the ground, shielding the team. The black water shapes slammed into it, shrieking, their forms dissolving into acidic steam that ate at the rock. But there were too many. They flowed around the sides. Wind release, vacuum wave. Naruto unleashed a slicing gale, scattering several shapes. But the severed pieces simply melted back into the main pool, reforming. This wasn't just water, it was cursed chakra, semi-sentient, feeding on the negative emotions baked into the place. He's fused himself with the spring. Chojuro shouted, drawing Hiramakari. His chakra is everywhere in the water. Hagain laughed, a sound like cracking ice. I am the mist's vengeance. I am the past you cannot bury. A tendril of black water shot not at Mei, but at Naruto. It moved with deceptive speed, wrapping around his ankle. A searing, icy-cold pain shot through him, followed by a psychic onslaught, a flood of fragmented memories of betrayal, fear, and murderous intent. The concentrated hatred of decades sought to drown his spirit. Naruto. Mei's cry cut through the mental static. He gritted his teeth, a flicker of orange chakra erupting around him to burn the tendril away. But the emotional residue lingered, a greasy stain on his senses. He saw the flicker of concern in Mei's eyes before she masked it with fury. You dare? Her voice dropped, low and deadly. The air around her began to shimmer with heat. You think your bottled hatred can compare to a Kage's will? She didn't use a grand jutsu. She focused. Boil release, instant killing steam. A needle-thin jet of colorless, superheated steam lanced from her fingertip, piercing through the chaotic water shapes with surgical precision, aimed directly at Hagain's core on the island. It was a move of breathtaking control, meant to sever his connection. Hagain snarled, and the entire black spring rose up as a shield. The steam hit it and a catastrophic reaction occurred. The chamber shook as explosive boils erupted where her precise heat met his chaotic hatred. In the confusion, Hagain struck at Mei's perceived weakness. A wave of black water, shaped into 1,000 grasping needles, targeted her team, Chojuro and the Umbu. A classic feint, forcing the protector to choose. Mei's eyes widened a fraction. She was too far to intercept it all. Naruto was already moving. Not to counter the water, but to fulfill his role in their unspoken symbiosis. She is the anvil. I am the hammer. She creates the opening. I clear the space. Sage mode. The world sharpened into crystalline focus. He didn't need to destroy the water. He needed to divert it. Moving faster than sight, he placed himself between the attack and the Kiri shinobi. Wind release, great spiraling wall. A colossal, rotating vortex of wind erupted from his body, not pushing the black water back, but catching it, spinning it, turning its own malignant force against itself. The needle wave was sucked into the whirlwind, contained in a furious, shrieking column of black and gold. Now, Mei. She didn't hesitate. She saw the opening his defense created. With Hagain's attention split and his main weapon momentarily contained, the path to the island was clear. She was a blur of motion across the churning surface. Your hatred is a prison, Hagain, she shouted, her hands a flurry of seals. Let me free you from it. Lava release, volcanic demolition. It was not a wide area attack. It was a focused, obliterating point. A beam of molten rock, white-hot and dense as a star's core, shot from her mouth. It didn't aim for Hagain's body. It aimed for the rock beneath his feet, the anchor of his connection to the spring. The impact was silent for a heartbeat, then the world dissolved into light and thunder. The island vaporized. The chakra link shattered. Hagain's scream was not of pain, but of loss. The black water lost its cohesion, collapsing back into a mere polluted pool. He fell to his knees on a remnant of scorched stone, his form shrinking, his stolen power bleeding away. Naruto released his wind, letting the purified water droplets rain down. He was at Mei's side in an instant, his sage mode senses still active, scanning for any last trick. Hagain looked up, his eyes now just old and tired. You broke the spring. I am breaking the cycle, Mei said, her voice firm but devoid of gloating. She was breathing heavily, a fine sheen of sweat on her brow. The precision of her final attack had taken immense chakra control. The mist's strength will no longer be measured by the depth of its suffering, but by the height of its future. As Chojuro moved to secure the broken man, the adrenaline of the battle began to fade. Naruto's sage mode faded, and with it went the hyper-clarity. The aftermath rushed in the echoing silence, the acrid smell of ozone and melted stone, the profound intimacy of shared, victorious combat. He looked at Mei. A strand of her auburn hair had escaped its tie, plastered to her cheek. There was a smudge of soot on her jawline. She looked exhausted, real, and utterly magnificent. You okay? He asked, his voice rough. She turned to him, and the fierce warrior queen was gone. In her eyes was the woman from the balcony, the one who carried impossible weights. And something more, a gratitude so deep it bordered on vulnerability. Thanks to you. That wind, it was more than a technique. It was a promise. You protected what was mine. The words hung between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. What was mine? Her people. Her duty. And in that moment, it felt like the circle of that protection had expanded to include him as well. Back on the surface, under a muted gray sky, as the team prepared to transport their prisoner, Mei stood apart, looking out at the sea. Naruto approached, giving her space until she sensed him. He was right about one thing, she said quietly, not looking at him. I am trying to dilute the old hatred. Not with weakness, but with something else. It's a lonely recipe. Hard to trust. You don't have to make it alone, Naruto said, the simplicity of his conviction a solid rock in the shifting mist. She finally turned to face him. The guard was down, completely. In her eyes, he saw the conflict, the fierce, independent Kaige who had rebuilt a village with her own will, and the lonely woman who had just seen that same will amplified, protected, and understood by the unlikeliest of allies. She reached out, not to touch him, but to brush a stray flake of ash from the shoulder of his jacket. The gesture was small, profoundly personal, and electric. I'm beginning to see that, she whispered. The mission was a success. The immediate threat was neutralized. But as they returned to the village, the true battle was just beginning, the one within their own hearts, against the tides of duty, expectation, and a connection that was growing too deep, too fast, and too real to ignore. Chapter 5, The Eye of the Storm. Victory in the graveyard of ships was not a quiet affair. News, twisted and amplified by rumor, swept through Kirigakure like a tidal surge. The official bulletin spoke of a decisive operation led by the Mizukage with Konoha assistance. The tavern whispers told a different, more potent story, of the Mizukage's molten fury and the Hokage's advisor who wielded the wind of a sage, of two powers moving as one to shatter a monument of hatred. The public perception of Naruto shifted. The wariness did not vanish, but it was now alloyed with a grudging, fascinated respect. He was no longer just a foreign symbol, he was the man who had stood back to back with their Kage and won. Children now pointed with excitement rather than fear. Old veterans in the tea shops nodded slowly, seeing echoes of powerful synergies from wars long past. For Naruto, the village began to reveal a softer side. The mist, once just damp and cold, now held the scent of blooming nightflowers from hidden courtyards and the rich aroma of seafood broths from street vendors who now offered him hesitant smiles. Kirigakure was letting him in, inch by inch. The eye of this storm of change was Mei's office, now a place of familiar collaboration. Scrolls about infrastructure and trade routes had replaced battle maps. Yet, the tension between them had morphed. The life and death urgency was gone, replaced by a constant, low-current hum of awareness. A brush of hands when reaching for the same document. The way his laughter seemed to lift the permanent weight from her shoulders for a fleeting second. The way she would watch him explain a point to Chojuro, her gaze thoughtful and unguarded. It was during one of these planning sessions that the storm's next front arrived. Mizukage-sama, an aide announced, bowing deeply. A communique from Konoha. The Hokage and his entourage will arrive tomorrow for a scheduled diplomatic review and to debrief on the recent operation. Mei's pen stilled. Naruto felt a complicated jolt of pleasure at seeing Kakashi-sensei and Shikamaru, mixed with a sudden, fierce protectiveness of the fragile peace he'd found here. This wasn't just a visit from home. It was an audit. Of the mission, of the alliance, and, though unstated, of him. See to the preparations, Mei said, her voice perfectly level. When the aide left, she leaned back in her chair, a wry, tired smile touching her lips. The watchmen come to see if the new bridge can hold weight. It's not just that, Naruto said, frowning. They're my friends. But, they're also the Hokage's advisors. They'll see everything. Let them see, Mei said, her green eyes meeting his with a challenge. Let them see that their hero is treated with the respect he deserves. Let them see a strong, stable ally. Her gaze softened a fraction. The question is, what will you let them see? The implication was clear. Their growing closeness, the private understandings, the charged silences, these were not for scrolls or reports. The arrival was formal, on the same main dock. Kakashi Hatake, his Hokage robes and hat a study in casual authority, offered his trademark eye smile. Shikamaru Nara stood beside him, looking profoundly inconvenienced by the sea air. A small contingent of Konoha shinobi followed. Mizukage-sama, Kakashi greeted, his voice easy. Kirigakure looks well. The mist seems brighter. Hokage-sama, Mei replied, every inch the gracious host. Welcome. We are pleased to show the fruits of our alliance. Her eyes flickered to Naruto, who stood at her right side, a place of honor. As you can see, your ambassador has been invaluable. The word ambassador hung in the air. It was a promotion, a political framing. The public dinners and tours were a masterclass in diplomacy. Mei was dazzling, effortlessly steering conversations, showcasing rebuilt academies, bustling markets, and the solemn, well-kept memorials. Kakashi played his part perfectly, the affable observer, while Shikamaru's sharp eyes missed nothing. It was on the second evening, after a strategically flawless feast, that Naruto found himself on a secluded veranda with Kakashi. Below, the lights of the village glittered through the mist like drowned stars. Troublesome place, Kakashi mused, not looking at him. All this water. Hard to get a solid footing. It grows on you, Naruto said, leaning on the railing. It's strong. Like its people. Kakashi finally turned his head, his single visible eye serious. She's a remarkable leader. To have pulled this village from where it was, it requires a will of steel. And a heart willing to be isolated. Naruto heard the unasked question. She's not as isolated as she thinks. A long silence. Then, Kakashi sighed, a cloud of breath in the cool air. Naruto, you've always moved in straight lines. Towards your dreams, towards your friends, towards your enemies. What you're walking now isn't a line. It's a web. Of politics, of history, of very powerful, very fragile emotions. One misstep doesn't just mean a failed mission. It could mean a broken treaty. Or a broken heart. I know, Naruto said, and the maturity in his own voice surprised him. But sensei. I finally met someone who understands the weight. Not from the outside. From the inside. She carries the same thing I do. And when we carry it together, it doesn't feel so heavy. Kakashi studied him for a long moment, then a genuine, fond smile appeared beneath his mask. You really have grown up, haven't you? He looked out at the village again. Just, be careful. For her sake, as much as yours. The world watches people like you too. It loves to build idols, and it loves even more to watch them fall. Meanwhile, in a quiet sitting room overlooking an interior water garden, Mei was facing a different kind of interrogation. Shikamaru, swirling a cup of tea, spoke without preamble. The efficiency of your joint operation was statistically anomalous for a first collaboration. Your combat styles are complementary on a level that suggests deep, intuitive understanding. Mei raised a delicate eyebrow. Is that a Nara analysis, or a concern? An observation, Shikamaru said. Troublesome observations lead to concerns. Konoha has a vested interest in the stability of the Mizukage. Your internal political opponents are weakened, but not gone. An attachment to a foreign shinobi of Naruto's profile could be framed as a vulnerability. Or a threat to Kiri's sovereignty. Mei's smile was icy. My personal life is not a subject for Konoha's strategic calculus. With all due respect, Mizukage-sama, Shikamaru said, meeting her gaze unflinchingly, everything about you is subject to someone's calculus. I'm not telling you to do anything. I'm just mapping the board. Naruto is our precious comrade. And you are a crucial ally. The optimal outcome is the continued strength and stability of both. Some paths to that outcome are more troublesome than others. He was not accusing. He was warning. And Mei, the master strategist, heard him perfectly. He was outlining the same fears that kept her awake at night, the fear that what was beginning to feel like a sanctuary could become a weapon used against them both. The final night of the visit, a formal reception was held in the Hall of Tides. Lantern light glimmered on water features built into the floor. Naruto, in Konoha formal wear, and Mei, in a stunning deep emerald kimono, played their parts, orbiting each other in the crowd, their interactions perfectly calibrated, respectful, friendly, distant. It was during a slow, traditional dance, required of their stations, that the facade thinned to transparency. The steps brought them close, hands meeting, parting. The world narrowed to the space between their bodies. Your Hokage is worried, Mei said softly, her voice barely audible over the music. Shikamaru gave you the tactical breakdown, huh? Naruto murmured back, a ghost of a smile on his lips. He's not wrong. He's not right, either. Naruto's hand found the small of her back for a turn, the touch burning through the layers of silk. They see the risk. They don't see this. For a fleeting second, as the dance brought her close, her mask of composure slipped. He saw not the Kage, but the woman, frightened, hopeful, yearning. What is this, Naruto, she breathed, the question a confession in itself. Before he could answer, before he could find words for the feeling that was a tempest and a calm harbor all at once, the music ended. They parted, the space between them instantly becoming a chasm of protocol and watching eyes. As the Konoha delegation departed the next morning, Kakashi offered a final, formal bow to Mei. Thank you for your hospitality, Mizukage-sama. The alliance has never been stronger. His eye crinkled. And thank you for looking after our number one knucklehead. He seems more grounded. Mei bowed in return. The thanks are mine. He has shown my people a new face of Konoha. One of unwavering support. As the ship pulled away, Naruto stood beside her on the dock, the early morning mist coiling around them. The evaluators were gone. The performance was over. What remained was the raw, unedited truth of their situation. So, Naruto said, staring at the vanishing ship. Now what? Mei did not look at the ship. She looked at him, her expression a complex map of resolve and fear. Now, she said, her voice steady with a new kind of decision, we stop pretending for them. And we decide what we are, for us. The eye of the storm had passed. The winds of consequence were now directly upon them, and they had chosen, wordlessly, to face them together. Chapter 6, The Unwritten Treaty. With the Konoha delegation gone, Kirigakure did not settle back into its old rhythms. A new, silent tension threaded through the days, a tension born not of external threat, but of an internal, seismic shift. The unspoken thing between Naruto and Mei, once confined to battlefield instincts and stolen glances, was now a living entity in the room, demanding recognition. They began to meet. Not by accident, and not in the Kage's office. The first time was in the archives of the ancients, a cavernous, rarely visited library deep within the Mizuki's compound. Mei had sent a cipher, a single line on a water-damaged scroll about tidal patterns, third bell, east stacks. The mist is thick tonight. He found her in a pool of lamplight, her formal robes exchanged for a simple, dark blue yukata. She was not reading. She was simply waiting. This is dangerous, he said, his voice echoing softly in the canyon of books. Everything worth having is, she replied, not rising. She gestured to the scroll-strewn table beside her. Sit. We are two allies, discussing historical waterway treaties. A plausible, if tedious, deniability. He sat. They didn't speak of treaties. They spoke of themselves. He told her of the long, aching loneliness of his childhood, the phantom pain of parents he never knew, the way ramen tasted different after Irika-sensei's first meal. She listened, not as a statesman assessing a comrade's vulnerabilities, but as a fellow traveler. In turn, she spoke of her own ascent, not the triumphant public version, but the gritty, bloodstained reality. Of looking into the eyes of former mentors she'd been forced to cut down. Of the hollow echo in the Mizuki's residence at night, so vast it seemed to swallow sound and hope. I built a throne on a foundation of ghosts, she confessed, tracing the grain of the ancient wood with a fingertip. And sometimes, in the silence, I can hear them whispering that I will join them. That this piece is a fragile dream, and I am its foolish dreamer. They're wrong, Naruto said, his voice absolute. Your dream isn't fragile. It's the strongest thing in this village. I can feel it. It's in the way the kids laugh now. It's in the fact that Chojuro follows you out of love, not fear. She looked at him then, her green eyes shimmering in the lamplight. You speak of my dream with the same conviction you once spoke of becoming Hokage. Because I understand it now, he said, leaning forward. It's not just about a title. It's about making a place where no one has to feel that loneliness. You're doing that here. And I want to help. Their hands were on the table, close enough that the heat from his skin seemed to bridge the gap. The air grew thick, charged with the weight of confidence is shared. This, Mei whispered, gesturing between them. This complicates everything. My counsel, the old families, they will see it as a foreign entanglement. A weakness. Or, Naruto countered, his gaze unwavering, they could see it as the ultimate alliance. Not just paper and promises. A union of wills. The word union hung in the dusty air, vast and terrifying. Mei did not pull away. Instead, a slow, genuine smile bloomed on her face, one that held a lifetime of weary cynicism and a newfound, fragile hope. You truly are an optimist of the most devastating kind, Naruto Uzumaki. Their meetings became their secret scripture. In the hidden garden behind the Hall of Tides, where the mist from a waterfall created a perpetual, private rainbow. On the high, wind-scoured observation platform atop the Mizuki's tower, where they could see the whole village sleeping, its safety their shared burden. They talked of everything and nothing, of ridiculous village gossip, of philosophies of leadership, of memories both painful and sweet. The physical space between them diminished by agonizing, exquisite degrees. A brush of shoulders as they looked over a railing. His hand, lingering to steady her on a slippery stone path. The night he reached out and carefully, so carefully, tucked that same stray strand of hair behind her ear. She had gone perfectly still, her breath catching, her eyes holding his with a question that had finally found its courage. The kiss, when it came, was not in a moment of high passion or danger. It was in the quiet hum of the archives, surrounded by the silent witnesses of history. They had been arguing good-naturedly about the merits of different ramen broths versus Kiri's signature seafood stews. You just haven't had it made properly, he insisted, a boyish grin on his face. And I suppose you're the expert, she teased, leaning back in her chair. I'm a believer in hands-on experience, he said, his grin softening into something more sincere, more intimate. The laughter faded from her eyes, replaced by a warmth that melted the last of her defenses. She looked at his mouth, then back to his eyes. The silent question was asked and answered. He closed the distance. It was not a collision, but a discovery. A slow, tender meeting that was a promise and a question all at once. Her lips were softer than he'd imagined, and she tasted of jasmine tea and the sea. Her hand came up to rest against his jaw, her touch feather-light and certain. It was a kiss that held all the simmering tension of months, the battle-forged trust, the shared loneliness, the mutual awe. It was a treaty written not on parchment, but on the soul. When they parted, foreheads resting together, the world had realigned. The mist outside the library windows seemed brighter. The silence was no longer hollow, but full. Well, Mei breathed, her voice unsteady, a blush high on her cheeks that made her look gloriously young. That complicates things exponentially. Naruto laughed, a low, happy sound that vibrated through both of them. Yeah. But it simplifies the most important thing. And what is that? That I'm in love with you, he said, the words leaving him with the ease of a fundamental truth finally spoken aloud. And I think, you might be in love with me, too. She didn't answer with words. She answered by pulling him back to her, her kiss this time deeper, filled with a surrender that was also a claim. It was an affirmation. A seal on their unwritten treaty. In the days that followed, a new light seemed to emanate from them both. Naruto's diplomacy took on a deeper, more patient quality. Mei's rulings from the Kage's seat carried a renewed, fiery compassion that even her critics could not dismiss. They were careful, no public displays, no foolish risks. But to those who knew them best, the change was unmistakable. Chojuro, sharpening Hiramakari eye one evening, said without looking up, he makes you smile. The real one. The one that reaches your eyes. Mei, reviewing a report, didn't deny it. He sees me, Chojuro. Not the Mizukage. Me. Her loyal swordsman nodded, a small smile of his own touching his lips. Then the village owes him a debt greater than any alliance. Just, be safe, Mei-sama. The world is not always kind to happy endings, especially for Kage. She knew he was right. Their love was a secret fortress, but fortresses could be besieged. The political landscape was ever shifting, and their happiness was a new, volatile element within it. The idyll could not last. A moon after their first kiss, the report arrived. Not from a border scout, but from a deeply placed agent in the Land of Water's underworld. It spoke not of pirates, but of a conspiracy. A cabal of disgraced former Kiri nobles, wealthy war profiteers, and a disaffected segment of the Hunterine Corps had been quietly coalescing. Their name was Shinsei no Kage, the shadow of the true. And their primary grievance, the spark for their planned coup? The Mizukage's compromised judgment and dangerous emotional entanglement with the foreign Jinchuriki, Uzumaki Naruto. Their secret was out. And it had become a weapon, aimed directly at her heart, and at the peace they had both fought to build. Chapter 7, The Shadow of the True. The report was not a scroll, but a declaration of war. It landed on Mei's desk with the weight of a tombstone. It contained names, dates, financial trails, and chillingly detailed plans. The Shinsei no Kage sought not just her removal, but a systematic purge of all foreign-influenced elements and a return to the purity of the Bloody Mist's isolationism. Their proof, their rallying cry? The alleged romantic involvement between the 5th Mizukage and Konoha's Jinchuriki. They called it the Mizukage's folly. They painted Naruto as a seductive weapon, a Trojan horse sent to weaken Kiri's sovereignty from within. Mei sat in the pre-dawn gloom of her office, the parchment cold beneath her fingers. This was her deepest fear made manifest, not just a political attack, but a desecration of the first real, private happiness she'd allowed herself in a decade. They had turned her heart into a treason. Naruto found her there. He didn't need to read the report, the fury and pain rolling off her in silent waves told him everything. He walked to the window, looking out at the village still swathed in sleeping mist. They know, he said, his voice flat. They suspect. They've gathered whispers. Now they're shaping them into a blade. Mei's voice was hard, the voice of the warrior who had cleansed the mist once before. But beneath it, he heard the tremor of the woman whose sanctuary had been violated. What's the play? He asked, turning to face her. This was not the time for comfort. This was the time for strategy. They will move during the upcoming unveiling of the tides, she said, rising, her silhouette framed by the gray light. It was a major festival, celebrating Kiri's naval heritage. The entire village and its dignitaries would be gathered at the harbor. They'll publicly accuse me. Use the spectacle to sow doubt, to force my counsel's hand. They'll demand your immediate expulsion and my submission to a council of purity for judgment. And if we deny it? Naruto asked, though he knew the answer. They have witnesses. Staged, no doubt. But credible enough to those who want to believe. Our denials will look like the lies of cornered lovers. She finally looked at him, and the vulnerability was gone, burned away by a cold, righteous fire. So we do not deny. Naruto's eyes widened. Mei. We control the narrative, she interrupted, stepping closer. We are not children caught in a scandal. We are two Kage-level shinobi, two leaders who have bled for this world's peace. If our alliance has deepened into personal respect and affection, why should that be a weakness? Why can it not be our greatest strength? He saw her plan then. It was audacious, terrifying, and utterly true to her character. She would not hide. She would meet the accusation head-on and redefine it. It'll be a gamble, he said. Everything is, she replied, a fierce smile touching her lips. But we do not gamble alone. We have the truth. And we have each other. The days before the festival were a silent, coiled spring. Naruto could feel the altered currents in the village. The friendly nods from shopkeepers were fewer, the stares from certain cloaked figures longer. Jojuro's vigilance became a palpable, protective sphere around them both. Kakashi was informed via a coded message that spoke only of political instability and requested standby diplomatic support. The stage was being set. The unveiling of the tides dawned clear and bright, the mist burning away to reveal a sparkling bay. The harbor was a riot of color and sound, fluttering banners, traditional drumming, the scent of fried street food and salt air. May stood on the central dais, resplendent in official white and blue robes, the Mizuki's hat upon her head. Naruto stood among the honored guests, feeling the weight of 1,000 eyes. The ceremony preceded its speeches, offerings to the sea, a dazzling display of water release techniques from the academy students. Then, as the climax approached, the symbolic launching of a fleet of miniature ships carrying wishes for prosperity, a voice cut through the festive din. A moment, Mizuki-sama. A man stepped from the crowd of dignitaries. It was an elder from one of the old, nearly disgraced clans, his face a mask of pious concern. Before we commit our hopes to the tide, should we not ensure the hand that guides us is pure? That it is not swayed by foreign interests? A dead silence fell over the harbor. The drumming stopped. May did not flinch. Her voice, amplified by subtle chakra, was calm and clear. Speak your concern plainly, Elder Haga. This is a day of clarity. The elder bowed, a theatrical gesture. Rumors plague the village. Rumors that you, our beloved leader, have entangled your heart in judgment with Konoha's weapon, the Jinchuriki Uzumaki Naruto. That our secrets, our security, are compromised by personal affection. The accusation, once a hidden blade, was now naked in the sun. A murmur swept through the crowd, part shock, part hungry anticipation. May's gaze swept the assembly, meeting the eyes of her people. Then she did the unexpected. She laughed. It was not a laugh of derision, but of profound, weary recognition. You speak of entanglement? Of bonds formed in secrecy? She removed her Kage hat, placing it slowly on the podium beside her. A gasp went up. The Mizuki never removed her hat in public ceremony. 4 months, Uzumaki Naruto has stood beside us. He fought our enemies. He bled for our peace. He has shown us that the strength of the new world is not in isolation, but in connection. She paused, her eyes finding Naruto's in the crowd. The world narrowed to that thread of green and blue. Yes. A bond has formed. Not one of compromised judgment, but of mutual respect. Of shared burden. Of love. The word, spoken aloud by their Kage in the full light of day, landed with the force of a tidal wave. The silence was absolute, stunned. Naruto felt every eye turn to him. He didn't look at them. He looked only at her. And then, he walked forward. He didn't rush, didn't falter. He walked through the parted crowd until he stood at the base of the dais, looking up at her. He was not a supplicant. He was an equal, meeting her on the field of truth she had chosen. Elder Haga speaks of me as a weapon, Naruto's voice, strong and sure, carried to the farthest dock. He's right. I am a weapon. A weapon for peace. A weapon I have placed, willingly, in the service of the Mizuki's dream for Kirigakure. My loyalty to her is not a secret. It is my honor. And if her dream is to love this village, and to love someone who fights for it beside her, then that is not a weakness. It is the reason we won the war. It is the reason any of us are here today. His words, raw with his signature, unvarnished honesty, began to turn the tide. People nodded. Whispers of, he fought with her, he saved the patrol, rippled outwards. Elder Haga's face darkened. The script was failing. He signaled subtly. From the rooftops in the crowd, figures shed their cloaks. Hunter Nin, rogue swordsmen, mercenaries, the armed wing of Shinsei no Kage revealed themselves. This was always the plan, if public shaming failed, a coup by force. You see. Haga shrieked. Her foreign lover brings violence to our sacred day. Seize them. Restore the true mist. Chaos erupted. Screams. The crowd surged. On the dais, May's expression turned to glacial fury. You dare? Her voice was a whipcrack. You dare spill blood on this day? You are not the true mist. You are its vomit, dredged up from the depths. She didn't order her umbu. She acted. Lava release, molten pellet barrage. A hailstorm of superheated rock shot towards the closest cluster of attackers, forcing them to scatter. Naruto was already a blur of orange chakra. Shadow clones erupted around him, engaging the rogue shinobi in the crowd, carefully herding panicked civilians to safety. Protect the people, his clones roared, their voices a chorus of unwavering intent. The battle was not in some distant cave. It was in the heart of the festival, a brutal contrast to the day's joy. May fought with controlled, devastating fury, her jutsu a beautiful, terrible dance of evaporation and dissolution, always mindful of the citizens below. Naruto was the unbreakable wall, the whirlwind that intercepted every attack aimed at her or the fleeing innocents. They moved without needing to call out, their synergy now a perfected language. When a squad of rogue swordsmen tried to flank the dais, Naruto's Rasengan shattered their formation, and Mei's boil release mist enveloped them before they could recover. When a long-range lightning jutsu speared down from a rooftop towards her, Naruto was there, a Rasen shuriken whirring to life in his hand, not to block, but to intercept and obliterate the attack at its source. It was over in minutes. The conspirators, relying on shock and political division, were no match for the combined, focused will of the Mizukage and the Jinchuriki of Konoha, fighting with the righteous fury of defenders, not conspirators. Elder Haga was on his knees, held by Chojuro-esque gleaming swords. The harbor was a mess of scorch marks, pitted stone, and stunned silence. Mei, breathing heavily, retrieved her hat. She did not put it on. She held it at her side as she walked to the front of the dais. Her robes were smudged, her hair coming loose. She had never looked more like a leader. This, she said, her voice ringing over the wrecked festival, is what the past offers. Blood on a day of peace. Fear in the place of hope. They did not attack me because I love. They attacked because love makes me stronger than their hatred could ever be. She looked at Naruto, who stood below, the orange chakra fading from his body. Her gaze was full of fire, and possession, and a love that was now a public fact. The alliance between Konoha and Kiri is not just ink. It is shared blood. Shared sacrifice. And yes, shared hearts. She turned back to her people. The unveiling today is not of the tides. It is of our future. It is messy. It is complicated. It is braver than hiding in the mist. Do you choose it with me? The silence held for one more heartbeat. Then, from the crowd, a single fisherman, his face weathered by sea and sun, raised his calloused hand and cheered. It was a raw, wordless sound of approval. Another joined. Then another. The sound swelled, not into the orderly chants of propaganda, but into a tumultuous, roaring wave of acceptance. They had seen their Kage fight for them, and for her truth. They had seen the foreign hero place himself as their shield. The calculus of suspicion was burned away in the clarity of action. Naruto climbed the dais to stand beside her. Not as a lover in secret, but as a partner in the light. He didn't take her hand. They stood shoulder to shoulder, facing the renewed cheers of the village they both, in their own ways, loved. The conspiracy was broken. Their secret was now their greatest strength, forged in public fire. But as the adrenaline faded, Naruto saw the shadow in Mei's eyes even as she smiled. The battle was won. The war of perception across the entire shinobi world, was just beginning. The Hokage would have to be told. The other Kage would react. Their personal treaty was now a geopolitical document for all to scrutinize. As the sun began to set on the battered, celebrating harbor, Mei finally looked at him, the public mask gone for him alone. No going back now, she murmured. I never wanted to go back, he said, and his smile was the sun breaking through the last of the mist.